Thank you. You may be seated. Bride. They were by here one other time, and I wasn't. Good to finally meet them as a couple. And look forward to. How long are you guys going to be in town? Just a couple days?
Until Wednesday.
Until Wednesday, anyway. I'm sure Mom and Dad will appreciate that. And good to have you. I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers that are here. And I realize that I don't always preach necessarily for a subject or for a holiday. And I have to be really honest, there's absolutely no holiday whatsoever in the Bible for Mother's Day. It was actually started in West Virginia not too long ago. And the commercialism of it is expounded greatly. And however, it is not to say that the Bible doesn't talk about honoring our mothers. And so we thank you for that. And if we have to be reminded for that, so do it. In light of that, just to honor our mothers, this week I was able to contact the Sword of the Lord. Dr. John R. Rice was the founder of the Sword of the Lord publications. And he wrote a pamphlet, a little booklet, When Mother Prays. And I have glanced in it. I have not taken the time to read it. But I would like to give all of our mothers on your way out. Brother Walt will be back there, and he will be giving you this. We may not have enough for everyone to say, can I take one home for my mother? I'm sorry we don't have that. If you're a mother here, then we want to give you one of these in honor of that this time. And so thank you for that, and thank you for being part of our family here this morning. I normally would say turn to the book of Romans, but we are not. Turn to the book of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, number 1 Samuel, chapter 1. 1 Samuel, chapter 1. This indeed is the subject of a woman. However, it wasn't necessarily in light of that as Mother's Day that I brought this particular message. Maybe that's what God wanted, I don't know. In 8 weeks from now, counting today, 8 Sundays from now, we will be having with us Dr. Tom Gillen. And he has been with us on many occasions. We look forward to him. Pray about that because he contacted me yesterday via instant message, the smartphone, and said he'd like to talk to me before we buy the tickets. And he is thinking seriously about driving up here. And I offered that to him last year, told him that's what the Bagwells do. Brother Gillum does not require, he's low maintenance. He would sit in the prophet's chamber, and he is a student of the Word of God. Study. However, we've never met his wife here. I met her down at Camp Zion, and I know her. But, and I said, boy, it would be a treat to have your wife come up. And she doesn't travel if he flies, and this is one of the only times he flies on a short occasion. Like right now, as I was talking to him yesterday, I found out that he's actually this morning in Boyne City, right up the road. And so he'll be up there this week with Jeff Jones, pastor up there in Boyne City. And so you pray for Brother Tom Gillum. But in light of that, last December, and I have no idea why, since I've been here, every year God has given us something to consider. A theme, if you will, for the year. One year I distinctly remember the theme was simple, don't quit. It was a statement that was in the front of the pulpit at Camp Zion at Myrtle Baptist Church, don't quit. And people came back throughout the year and said, Pastor, you're never going to believe it. But I've been thinking about just giving up. I just want to quit. And I saw that sign. I knew that theme. And I just couldn't quit. And so God uses it. It was reaching into mid-December. No theme whatsoever. I thought, well, this will be the year that we won't have a theme. We'll just see what God does. We're scripturally just going through the Bible, and nothing wrong with any of that. And toward the end of December, I was spending time in prayer. And it was just as clear as day, a statement that was in my heart. Prayer is enough. And so that has been our theme. We haven't had any significant underlining of what prayer is. But I want to, for the next 7 Sundays, well, actually it will be 6. You don't know it, but Robin and I are going to be gone one of those Sundays. And Brother Neiman doesn't know it, but he's going to be preaching. But out of those 6 Sundays and counting today, I would like to look at the Bible. We may go past that. But I would like to challenge you as God's people to understand what prayer is. And I would like to ask a simple question this morning. What's your prayer life like? This last week we were, Robin and I had the privilege of previewing a faith-based movie that is going to be coming out the end of August. And if you're familiar with Facing the Giants, Fireproof, the brothers, they're members of Shenandoah. That down is it something Shenandoah Baptist Church. Anyway, they started a production, started out, and they've been making faith-based movies. Would I agree with everything? No. But the messages. Every movie in there has been an aspect of, if you watch Facing the Giants, he found them on the field having, if you will, a revival in prayer. Every movie has some aspect where there is prayer. This one that's coming out in August is called War Room, and it is all about prayer. It's a movie based strictly on prayer. And to be honest, I was in tears most of the way through that movie. It wasn't no one chasing anybody down, cars weren't exploding, guns weren't going off. It was a struggle of a family who was about to get a divorce. And she was a realtor, and she was going to interview a little old lady who wanted to sell her house. Too many stairs, and it was time for, and she was going to move in with her son. Little did she know that the real estate lady, little did she know that little old lady had 3 favorite rooms. One was her living room, one was her dining room, and one was her war room. The war room was a closet that she had cleaned out, and there was in there a chair. And in that chair, and beside that were pieces of paper taped up all around the wall. In there, she learned how to fight. Absolutely amazing movie. Wouldn't agree with everything, but I'm telling you, when it comes out, I can't wait for it to come out on DVD. We'll be showing it here. It's such a profound. But as I've been dealing with prayer in my own life, it kind of just melded right in. And so this week, I've just been challenged in my own heart to understand prayer and reinstitute what prayer is. We have a war room. We have a couple warriors in there right now. Amen. They're under battle. That the devil would be away from us and allow the Word of God to preach. And I'd like to challenge you over these next several weeks that we're going to be together to begin to establish a prayer life. Perhaps it will be alone. A spouse will not agree with you. Perhaps it will be with a family. And in your family time, you'll spend time in prayer. And I'd like to challenge you, and I have not gotten all the details yet, but some years ago, we had a 24-hour prayer vigil where we started on a Friday evening and we ended on a Saturday evening. I didn't ask anyone to particularly come in and be at the altar, to spend time in your own home and to pray. But we signed up, and for 24 hours, someone at Bills Lake Baptist, from the family of Bills Lake Baptist, was praying. And we culminated with a gathering together on Saturday evening. And gathered together as a family praying for Sunday morning. I think it would be appropriate that on the eve of Brother Tom Gillum being with us, I have no idea what he's going to preach on. But would it be a shame to have him here, enjoy the preaching, and walk away the same in which he came? Prayer will be the avenue in which God will change our hearts and our lives. And so for these next few weeks, as God would give me direction and give me grace, I'm going to preach on prayer. This text that we have this morning encompasses the entire chapter 1 and part of chapter 2. And like another message that I preached some weeks ago, it kind of scares me because I've gotten 10 points. And it generally will ask 1 point per service. I will attempt to not do that. However, in light of these, I believe that we will see these points again over the next several weeks as we examine the prayers that are in the Bible to see what God will do. We've had a word of prayer, and I'd like to bring your attention to verse number 1. Now, before we get into verse number 1, I got to tell you, I have practiced and practiced and practiced trying to say the name of which the town that he is from. And I still can't do it. So we're just not going to do it. The Bible says, now there was a certain man of... Well, he's from Mount Ephraim. He's got a town. I wouldn't want to say that once. Try to say it 3 times fast. I don't know. Andrew is a linguist. Perhaps he could tackle that. And his name was Elkanah. He's the son of Jeroam, the son of Elihu, the son of Tuhu, the son of Zuphah, an Ephrathite. Doesn't say much. We know who he is. We know his heritage. But we see in verse number 2 that he had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And this man went up out of the city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of the host in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priest of the Lord, were there. When the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters portions. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion. It seems to me there's something to be said about what he gave to her compared to the others. For he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb. I'd like to talk in the next several verses. I want to point out several things that we know about prayer. I've entitled this, I don't usually make a title lately. I just, Romans chapter 12 and verse number 6. That's where we're at. But I've entitled this one this morning, And She Prayed. The first thing that I'd like to point out in verse number 6, I would like to point out a cause of her grief. Look at verse number 6. And her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb. If I were going to take time and preach the entire message, this would be worthy of it. Just because they go to church does not mean that you will find everyone there likable.
That's right.
The adversary that we seem to be looking at, number one, it would have been better for Elkanah than that but one wife. Because her adversary was the other wife. Something about wisdom there about having one wife and being happy. But I want you to know that irregardless whether I agree or disagree, the fact that he had two wives, and it seemed that these two wives couldn't get along, but I want you to know the hypocrisy that is taking place. We find that one wife as the adversary toward the other. And yet, we just read in verse number 4 and verse number 5 that they had traveled to Shiloh and were going for their annual time where they would go into the house of the Lord and sacrifice and worship. The adversary was not outside of her life. The adversary was within her life. I'm grieved that we as church, we were down in the Sunday school this morning, and I said one of the things that I'm hoping and praying to do is to set a course with new believers, new converts, new members, that we would, I want them to understand that we're not perfect. We as Bills Lake Baptist Church, we're not. I'm not. We have difficulties among us. I got to be really honest. I didn't realize it, but Dirk pointed it out. We have the battle of the north and the south. This is the north side. This is the south side. The north and the south. We have it right here. Oftentimes the border seems to be uncrossable, unbearable. And I said we're in a church that we have cliques that abound. Nothing wrong with having friendships. Nothing wrong with having close friendships. I'll be really honest, there are some, though I have the families that I look over, there are some that I spend more time with. Are they necessarily my favorite? Maybe not. Maybe I spend more time with them because they're the squeaky wheel and he needs the most grease. I don't know. But there are people that come up and say, Pastor, you're just playing favorites. I pray that's not true, but I suppose when you start spending time with individuals, you get to know them and they get to know you. And by nature, that close relationship grows even closer. That doesn't mean that I don't like everyone. It doesn't mean that I don't love everyone in the Lord. I told somebody the other day, and I said, I know God tells me to love them. I'm just trying to find out, do I have to like them? And, but I find here a great cause of concern. Here is a woman whose womb is closed up, who obviously, because we're going to see that she is greatly concerned about that. She wants the blessings of children in her life. We find that in her own family, the torment. You don't have your children. I can tell you what is happening. You must have something wrong in your life. God's judging you. And the words go on and on and on. She has a cause of grief. What does that cause bring us to? Look at verse number 9. The Bible says, so Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli, the priest, sat upon the seat by the post of the temple of the Lord, and she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. The word bitterness of soul, literally, it does include anger. It does include frustration. It does include the emotion of all of, the bitterness emotion that is set forth. But as I was looking at it, I was examining it and trying to say, is it that she's going there and going unto the Lord and saying, God, I'm mad at other spouse of my husband, would you just kill her? Because that kind of bitterness, that's where it leads to. Wishing ill against another. I can't say that I see that in here. So one of the other words of bitterness is also grief. She was grieving in her heart because something was missing. And that brought out those groanings before her heavenly Father. I noticed also that she was wept sore. Oftentimes, if we'll get in an intense time of prayer, I believe you'll find yourselves needing a tissue or two. It is not always that I pray that I have tears that flow. But I find some of the sweetest, closest time that I am with the Lord, that tears are part of that. Amen. We have a problem in emotionalism today. We're so afraid, can't show emotionalism. And emotions are dangerous. But I have to tell you, when we're close with the Lord, there might come a little bit of emotions and you need to be ready for it. Amen? She wept sore. So we see the cause of her grief. We see the cry for her help. What is that cry? The cry is, she vowed in verse number 11, he says, she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. Now we see a vow, a promise. Last week we had the privilege of witnessing a family coming forward and calling this young child, and they said, we want the church to understand our intent to raise our sons to know the Lord, to love the Lord. Amen. It is a vow. The Bible would tell us that it'd be better to not make a vow than to make it and to break it. And so we understand she is going before the Lord in her grieving, in her crying, her weeping before God. She said, and what was her prayer? God, I don't want just a child. I want a man-child. And I'll tell you, Lord, and this isn't just let's make a deal. Lord, I will vow unto you that if you'll give me this man-child, he'll be yours. Amen. I'll bring him unto you and he'll serve you. And don't get hung up about that razor not touching his head. Some people say, aha, now I know why you don't get a haircut. Everyone needs to grow their hair. This is a very special person set up for a specific reason. And I would not want to be part of that interpretation of the excuse of having long hair on a man. But there was a promise to God. But I would like to also notice that there was the view of others. Here she is grieving. She's been tormented. She's now praying. What will that prayer look like when others look on her? Look at number 12 and following. And it came to pass, she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli marked her mouth. He was watching her. Now Hannah, she spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought that she had been drunken. And Eli said unto her, how long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I'm a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Count not thy handmaid for a daughter of Belial, but for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. I want you to know the view of others. You developed a prayer life. You're going to be accused of being peculiar person. You get driving down the road and you start talking to God, somebody might think that you've got a problem. But I want you to know, her relationship was so sweet with God that words did not come out of her mouth, but the Spirit, she was praying among herself, not realizing that others were even there. And though no voice came out, her lips were moving, and someone says, she's drunken. She's a drunkard. And the priest accused her of being drunken. Why don't you quit your praying and quit your drinking? Why don't you get your heart right? I got thinking about that. Notice this in verse number 16. Count not thy handmaiden for a daughter of Belial. You know Belial? Hannah equated drunkenness as the work of Belial. Who is this? Belial, literally in Hebrew, is the word for wicked, ungodly, worthless. Wicked, ungodly, and worthless. You think that you can take time and indulge in things in your life, in your private life, and not see that others are watching? And she said, no, I'm not involved in wickedness, drunkenness, worthlessness. I got to tell you, I'm not an advocate of drinking. Did you figure that one out? In fact, I'm kind of just convinced that it's a waste of good time. You want to do something productive, instead of tipping a glass, maybe we ought to be bending a knee.
Amen.
As she had explained herself, Eli decided that he would change his opinion. Verse number 17, it says, then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. Oh, woo, I don't know about anybody else. This is a moment of excitement, because we're told in the Word of God where 2 or 3 are gathered together. And then we agree that God's will can be accomplished. He didn't even realize it. God was using him to show her that her prayers were about to be answered. How do I know that? Prayer time is over. Eli has said, may God grant you the prayer that you've asked. You think she was convinced that God was there in her midst?
Amen.
I'm kind of thinking so. Look at this. In verse number 18, she said, let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. What happened? Eli had encouraged her. If you see someone who is spending time in prayer, I would be very careful about going up to them and mocking them in their prayer life.
Amen.
I was once taught as a young child a song, and I don't remember the whole song, but I remember part of the words of the song. You can talk about me as much as you please, and I'll talk about you down on my knees. You began the competition, and you began the ridicule, and you began the mocking, you began all that, and you might find, if you go to that warrior's prayer closet, that in her, his or her prayer is one of those names, and it happens to be yours. Mm-hmm. She came forth with a new, invigorated life. God had met with her. What did that entail? Look at verse number 19 and verse number 20. It says, and they rose in the morning early and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came there to their house to Ramah and Echaniah. I'm so glad that he could Ramah and not the rest of the place. And he went to, and Echaniah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come, about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord. Literally, the word Samuel is 2 words. It literally means to hear. That is S-A-M-U. That means to hear. /E-L. L. Anybody ever heard the word El before? El Shaddai. El. Oh my. It's the word for God. God. She was literally naming my son, heard from God. That's a good name. Heard from God. So I want you to notice that there is an answer of prayer when we spend time in a prayer closet. Over these next week, and we begin to develop our life and begin to ask God, I want you to know the only way you're going to know that they're answered prayers if you begin to document your prayer requests. I want you to know this though. You write your prayer requests down. List them. Leave space for the time that God gives you the answers, if I may. But I want you to know there's 3 possible answers. There's yes, and you can put it down, answered prayer. There's no, you can put her down, answered prayer. And there's also one that's kind of obscure, not yet. And you can put that down with a question mark, waiting on God. Her prayers have been answered. She walked out knowing that God had met with her, spending time in prayer. 2 had agreed, confirmed to her that God had been with her, and it was time for her prayer to be answered. And I want you to know that she then did that which she had called. So the next thought that I would like to leave you with is the duties of an answered prayer. If you're going to ask of God, I would be very careful to put down what your intent is if God or when God answers that. Because it's as good as a vow. And God will hold you accountable. So what would be the example that Hannah would have us before us this morning? The cost of this. Look at verse number 23. Elkanah, her husband, said unto her, Do what seemeth good to thee, tarry until thou hast weaned him. The verses just before, Elkanah is going back up. It's time to go back up to the temple. Time to go to Shiloh. Time to worship. Time to offer sacrifice. And you know what she said? Can't go. God told me don't go. I am not going until the child is weaned and ready to be presented for the to the Lord. There is a cost in which her prayer, and the prayer came. The cost is, what will be the cost is that there is going to be a vow that was made, and a vow must be paid. The cost of this prayer, verse 23, Elkanah, her husband, said unto her, Do what seemeth good, tarry until you have weaned him. Only the Lord established his word. So the woman abode and gave her son suck until she weaned him. And verse number 24. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bullocks and 1 ephod of flour and a bottle of wine, and brought him unto the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. And they slew a bullock and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as thou sowest liveth my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto the Lord. You know what she's saying? Eli, do you remember me? It's been several years now. Remember when you accused me of being drunken? And I've just been praying, grieving that God would open my womb and allow a child to be born. I can only imagine that Eli's smile would just start to spread on his face. And said, yeah, I do remember that. She then revealed, I think then, because I have no indication that it was ever told to Eli what the vow was. It was between her and God alone.
Amen.
And then she revealed the vow as she intended to fulfill it. Notice it says right here, it says, verse 27, "For this child I pray, and the Lord giveth me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore, also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord." And he worshiped the Lord there. Eli, when I was praying, I told God, if he'd give me a son, I'd bring him back and I'd let him serve the Lord all the days of his life. And I love this statement. She didn't give him away. You notice what it said? She lent him. We have a real problem. I mean, we have moms and dads who are struggling because their children are getting excited and they come out and they say, "I believe that God's called me into the ministry. Furthermore, I believe that God may be calling me to the mission field." Oh, you wouldn't believe the tears of joy. How dare God take that child from me? I bore him, I raised him, I changed his diapers, I fed him. God can't do that. I got news for you. She understood that the very life that was before her was a gift from God.
Amen.
And if she never saw him ever again, she would have the knowledge, I'll be with him again. I'm just going to lend him to you for the rest of his life. Just going to let him be here. Because one day we're going to spend eternity together in the presence of our Father. I lent him for the rest of his life. I just like it. Man, if we're going to be praying, we got to see the permanency of prayer. I mean, God's going to start answering prayers, and we're going to be earnestly praying. We're going to be praying for revival. We're going to be praying for our nation. We're going to be praying for our families. I have no idea the vastness of this list that is going to be starting to be compiled in your heart and in your lives and down on paper. But I got you to know, I got to tell you that when God gives you the answers to these prayers, they will not always be everything that you expected, but they will be answered from God, and they're not going to be taken back. And so she makes this vow, and now she's revealing her vow, and she realizes the cost of this prayer would be her son. Yeah, lend her. But I want you to know, I don't got much time, but I got to get past this. In the fulfilling of her prayer, in the raising of her child, weaning her son, and at what age that is, I tried to look it up, I'll be really honest. Wow. It goes from 2 years old to 12 years old when women would continue to raise their children with the nourishment of their body. Now keep it generic. But there comes a time when weaning takes place. So we don't know, all we know is he was young. That's all the Bible says. From that time on, he would be not with mom and dad. He would be with Eli in the presence, serving the Lord. And I got to tell you, this is one woman that didn't walk away with grief. This is one woman. I got to just read it. Got to read her prayer now of praise. And Hannah prayed, verse number 1 of chapter 2, and said, "My heart rejoiceth in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth is enlarged over my enemies, because I rejoice in thy salvation. There is none holy as the Lord, for there is none beside thee, neither is there any rock like our God. Talk no more so exceeding proudly. Let not arrogancy come out of your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by Him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken, and they that stumbled are girded with strength. They that were full have hired out themselves for bread, and they that were hungry ceased. So that the barren hath borne 7, and she hath many children, is waxed feeble. The Lord killeth, and the Lord maketh alive. He bringeth down to the grave, and He bringeth up. The Lord maketh poor, the Lord maketh rich. He bringeth low and lifteth up. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill, to set him among the princes, and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and He hath set the world upon them. He will keep the feet of His saints, and the wicked shall be silent in darkness. For thy strength shall no man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Out of heaven shall He thunder upon them. And the Lord shall judge the ends of the earth, and He shall give strength unto the king, and exalt the horn of His anointed. Woo, what a prayer! This is a prayer of a woman who just said, here's my son, my only son. He belongs to God. I'm not mad. She says, I'm downright glad. I'm excited. Why? Because it just shows me that God is in control. He makes those that think they're proud, He will bring them to humility. He shows those that are humble, He will raise them up as princes. He will feed the poor. He will take those that are rich and have plenty and make them poor. It is God who's in control. Do you get it? Amen. It was because of a prayer of her crying out to God. In a season of prayer, she would just bend her knee. People would accuse her of being a drunkard. And all she did was say, God, I want a son. If you give me a son, I'll bring him before you and I'll let him serve you. Her prayer then was, wow, imagine the answers. She was being downright prophetic about what God was going to do with the life of her child, whom she led to God. I like that. One more thought, and I'll be done. We've seen the answered prayer. We've seen the duties of an answered prayer. We see the cost of Hannah's prayer. We've seen the joy fulfilled of answered prayer. Can I give you one more? The unexpected benefits of prayer. Unexpected benefits of prayer. 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse number 21, if you will. And the Lord visited Hannah so that she conceived and bare 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the child Samuel grew before the Lord. I got to tell you, the challenge of prayer these next weeks will be, there will be a cost that you have to pay. It may cost you your reputation of being a sound person. People will accuse you of doing strange things. I love in that movie that we watched, War Room, the young lady who was challenged in being discipled on how to be a warrior. The statement that the older lady said was so profound. I've said it on many occasions, but I haven't said it in a long time. If you can see your enemy, you're fighting the wrong enemy. Because our war is not with flesh and blood, but with principality. She was teaching her, you can't fight your husband. But if you want a good fight, you got to prepare for battle. And she showed her war room. The lady, they kind of mocked throughout the movie. She started out, the first of the movie, as she had slipped off her shoes, and her daughter, 8, 9 years old, said, "Ew, what's that smell?" Mom says, "What, you said to my shoes? You know, sorry." So throughout the movie, there was some reference to funny in that. She came to her closet, walk-in closet, filled with clothes, shoes, and she sat down and began, and she had written out some prayer requests that she wanted. She pasted it on the wall right above her stack of shoes, and all of a sudden got this kind of a stinky smell. She picked up her shoes. Woo! You know what? You get yourself a prayer closet, you're going to have to do some cleaning. Because there's some things that stink.
That's right.
Same as the analogy or the lesson is, if we're going to make our hearts ready for the praying of God's children, there's some closets that need to be cleaned in our hearts.
That's right.
I've got to be really honest, I don't know about anybody else. I can't say it for you. But I found when I was examining my prayer closet in my heart that I found some things that were kind of stinky. The next scene was she was taking out all her clothes, things that were distracting her. Taking out the shoes, holding them out to get rid of them. And she found herself in a barren room, no distractions, on the ground, sitting. She didn't have a chair. She just sat there on the carpet and found that she could cry out to God because the distractions were gone. And I got to tell you, if we're going to understand what prayer is, it's going to cost you. And you're going to have to find a quiet time. And you're going to have to find out there's nothing wrong with having family time. There's nothing wrong with having Bible study. Nothing wrong with having family prayer time. But the truest warrior will find themselves, I don't care. Oh yeah, by the way, the daughter, she started watching what Mom was doing. She went to her own closet and put up her own prayer list. Number one, that Mom and Dad would stop fighting. Interesting to know that as this movie was unfolding, the dad walked into the closet of their daughter and looked down there as God started working on his heart, that Mom and Dad would quit fighting, and she had to sit by that, answer prayer. And he realized he wasn't fighting a battle against his wife. The battle was between the good and evil and the right and wrong. And he had to learn some valuable lessons about right and wrong. I'm telling you, Hannah is a great example. She fought the battle. She went before the Lord. She made vows, but she prepared to pay those vows. And when she did, she found blessings that were untold and more than she had. Do you remember the prayer? Lord, give me a man-child. That's all I'm asking for. What did God do? 3 sons, 2 daughters. More than one. Sounds like 5 to me. Isn't that amazing what God will do? You say, well, is every time I pray, God's going to abundantly answer my prayer? I have no idea. But I know this, He'll do it in His good time, and He'll do it for His pleasure. Amen. Let me draw this to a conclusion. I have no doubt that the Lord wants to hear from you and me. I also believe that He's capable of answering every prayer. If, great big giant if, we are willing to allow God's will to prevail in our lives. I'm convinced that there's no sinner that God cannot save. I'm convinced there's no backslidden Christian that God cannot bring home. Whatever it takes to bring home.
Amen.
There is no need so great that God cannot meet, and there is no desire, to put in parentheses, these are my words, in His will, there's no desire that we cannot ask for. So let me ask you again the simple question we started out this morning. How's your prayer life? In the next several weeks, if the Lord will allow us, through the AM service, morning service, we're going to look at different aspects of prayer. But I challenge you, don't wait for this preacher. Start seeking out the Word of God about what prayer is. And then find yourself a little place where you can go. I think it was the Wesley brothers who, their mother had, what was it, 12, 13 kids? 19 kids? Yeah, I knew it was a lot. You know what her prayer closet was? She took her apron. Kids knew when the apron was over the head, don't touch Mom. Because if Mama ain't happy, then nobody's happy. She needed her time of quietness. In the mass, 19 kids. And she needed time to pray. There is no excuse for you and I to not spend time in prayer in our lives. And every opportunity is given to us. You say, but what about my favorite? You know, it's on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. I've got a favorite every night. If that's the problem that's in your life, I recommend that you throw it out the door. Save you a little bit of money if you're not paying the cable bill. I have nothing against TV. Have to have one. If you don't want one, that's fine. But if it's a distraction to keep you from praying, you need to get the distractions out of your life so you can pray.
That's right.
I have no idea why I say that. How's your prayer life? Maybe it's time to reestablish it here and now. We just find a little niche around the old-fashioned altar, or around the pew, or around in the corner. Maybe it's right where you are. You say, but God, by your grace and your help, these next weeks I've been challenged to pray. And I'll do that challenge. I'll do what you've called me to do to establish my relationship with you. I don't know what that prayer will be, but I ask you to you respond as God's called you and spoke to your heart. Let's all stand. Miss Gwen, would you come? I hate to interrupt it. Maybe God's telling her to pray. Now she's got to play the piano, so I'll trust that she'll find that peace and place to pray. That's what God wants her to do. We'll pray here in just a moment. And if you need to spend time in preparation for the war that is about to ensue, I think that Walt was telling me last night when he was signing up people for the prayer closet for the next week, they often would come back and said, worst possible week is knowing that the following Sunday they would be in the prayer closet praying for the preacher in the services. The devil does not want you to pray. And he'll do anything he can in his power to keep you from that. The question is, what are you going to do about it?
That's right.
Our Heavenly Father, well, I have no idea how this was going to end. Just trying to be obedient. You've called us to a people to be a people of prayer. We ask, Lord, that you would touch the hearts of your children. Whether they move forward or not makes no difference to me. How they respond in their heart between you and them, that will make all the difference here at Bills Lake Baptist Church in our lives together. So you deal in our lives as you see fit, and you direct, and we'll give you the praise. Amen. The piano begins to play. Several are already here. God's called you to establish a time of prayer in your life. Would you make it? It doesn't matter what others are doing. You just be obedient. Sometimes the scariest part is to step out and bow our knee and say, okay, God, I don't care who's watching. I'll just do what you want me to do. You can say it right where you are. I get it. There's something awful sweet about just bending the knee and bowing the head. That's called you to a season of prayer. I challenge you to respond. And start your season of prayer here and now. I'm not begging, I'm just waiting. So we'll hear our praying, we'll spend time again if we need to. Spend that season of prayer getting ready. You ought to put on the whole armor of God. The battle's about to begin. And on the wall at Camp Zion, in the back, where the back balcony, the wall there, it has, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, will forgive their sin, and will heal their land." We are called to be a people of prayer. But in that prayer, it will call us to be a people of action. And if you're part of that challenge over these next several weeks, it's not going to be easy. The battle has been called. It's time for God's soldiers to stand up and say, "I'm here."
Amen.
The fight is on, the Christian soldier. If you're a child of God, and you mean it, I'm telling you, it's gonna be tough 6 weeks. But it'll be worth it all when we see Jesus.
Amen.
Father, thank you for loving us. We thank you for the time that we can be together as your family, that we can be reminded of the Word of God and how we ought to conduct ourselves as your children. I pray, Lord, that as we start out on this journey as a family, that we will encourage one another to stand fast. We will help each other put on the armor of God. That we will encourage others when the fiery darts of the wicked one come our way. And that, Lord, we will be a people of prayer, ever mindful that it is you who are in charge of all things. So we give this time over to you, Lord. We ask no more than but that you are in control. We also pray, Lord, that you'd bless the time of fellowship. The dinner that we'd follow, we'll be sharing a meal together. Would you bless it, nourish it, your body's strength? As we honor our mothers this morning, may we do so in this time in a manner that would be pleasing unto you. We ask this in Jesus' name. For our ladies that are leaving, or heading out the door, grab one of those books. And then when we get ready to serve downstairs, we're going to ask all the mothers to go first.